Okay. Just 1 minute, Kevin. We're doing a test here because. Okay. All right. Seems like right now I just started the broadcasting, so it's just a matter of waiting for everybody to start popping in. Usually they, I know that I just want to fix the fact that I am here listening to myself twice. So hold on.
It works fine when you say something really intelligent. It's when you don't that you have the problem.
That's a problem, indeed. Exactly. Okay, so right now there's well, I'm sorry. Our people are starting to join us today here at the dojo, and well, first of all, I want to thank you, Kevin, for having agreed to join us here today for 30 minutes. I know you're in a tight schedule, so we really appreciate your time and your sharing your expertise. And I'm just gonna introduce you real quick. And people here at Nearsoft, this is for a message for you guys. And right now we have here online we have Kevin Daum. Kevin is an award-winning, best-selling author of 5 books, by the way. He's a marketer, speaker, columnist for Inc.com and Smart Business Magazine. And as an Inc. 500 entrepreneur, his sales and marketing techniques resulted in more than $1 billion in sales. So hopefully we might be able to learn something. And so he has other interesting parts of his experience here that I'm just going to let Kevin do the talking and introduce himself. And then, oh, by the way, the topic of the day is going to be, what we're going to be talking today is strategy and execution in marketing for startups. Okay, so that's going to be the main topic, but of course, feel free to ask Kevin any questions regarding what he knows. I already shared the link to his page, and or also any other topic that you would like to learn about based on the information that I've shared with you people. So Kevin, I'll let you do the honors and get it rolling.
Thanks.
They're all yours.
Thanks for having me, Carlos.
Sure.
Well, I think here's what I like to talk about with marketing. I think the problem, whether you're a startup or whether you're a mature company, the problems are the same. In fact, if anything, startups have a little bit of an advantage because when you're a startup, you pretty much are clear that you don't have all the systems and processes in place to do effective marketing. The problem with mature companies is that they actually believe they've got something going, and they probably have it wrong or not fully complete. And so they end up in a situation where, maybe good enough is taking place and they're not getting to where they need to be. The thing about, I think the thing we have to start with is the difference between sales and marketing. This is the challenge that most companies come from. Many companies just believe that it's the same. It's all part of the same. Just bundle it all together. It's how do we get leads and everything, and sales and money and revenue in the door. I take a different view. Sales is the process of taking a client from start to finish. In fact, if you go to my website, if you go to kevindaum.com/100, you'll see a breakout of what the sales process is. It starts with lead generation. How do we get clients to come to us? Client assessment. Is this the right client for us? Because not all people out there are actually your clients or the right clients. Client analysis. What does the customer really want or really need, which are rarely the same thing. And then the prescription. What do you actually have to offer them, and at what at what price? And that's your business model, right? And then objection removal. Do I want to buy? No. Why not? Well, your price is too high. Well, what if I lower the price? Now do you want to buy? No. Why not? Well, because I don't like you. What are the objections that you're removing along the way? The transaction itself, because especially in a service business, if you're integrated with that customer for a long period of time, doesn't matter if you're SAS or if you're an actual physical bricks and mortar type service, you're going to interact with that customer, and there's sales touch points along the way. And then referral and repeat. How do I get them to bring me more business, and how do I get them to do more business with me? All of that doesn't require any marketing. I come from the mortgage world originally, and there are lots of loan officers out there that would just go and meet with a client and do all of that, on a handshake and a smile and all in front of them. And still today, that's the case. But the problem is that if you want to scale that business, and most startups and regular companies that are even part of the process, they want to scale. And you can't scale efficiently trying to do every one of those things with people. So what I define as marketing is the application of efficiency tools for scalability. So rather than going out and generating leads, I might do pay-per-click, or SEM on Google. That's a marketing tool to generate leads that's more efficient than me physically going out and networking. Or I might do content marketing and do inbound marketing, as it's called, where I put out a bunch of information out onto blogs and social media to attract those customers. That's an efficiency process so that I can do more with less resources than if I had to physically send people out there to go knock on doors. And so the problem is that most people don't consider that sales process when they're applying the marketing. Then they know a few techniques. They like Twitter or they like Facebook, so they'll do a lot of stuff with that. Or they found that a flyer worked really well, or a postcard, or getting placement in a magazine. And so that's the stuff that they like. Or somebody comes up with a great idea and says, "Hey, why don't we just do this?" And they throw it out there, and they don't have the specific purpose or intent behind it. So at that website that I was talking about, that 100 questions, it's that kevindaum.com/100. If you go to that website, what happens is you can see that there are 100 different questions that you have to answer in your sales process in order to actually have efficient marketing. Because if you don't know what you're trying to accomplish in a measurable way, how do you know if the marketing was really effective? And you'll hear lots of companies talk about branding. I define branding as it's the name that all marketers give to projects and methods that they can't create measurable ROI. So if I'm going to go ahead and put out a big billboard somewhere and I haven't found some way to track whether or not that billboard has been doing it, you'll hear them go, "Oh, well, you have to do that because it's branding." If I'm going to go buy a bunch of advertising, and I can't track how that advertising is actually bringing me clients, and I go to justify to the marketing director, "Why are you spending money on this advertising? Is that doing anything good for us?" And they go, "Oh, well, it's branding." So branding is often used to justify things that you just can't measure. And in today's technology, there's no reason to spend any money on something that you can't measure, especially if you're a startup. Hey, if you're Coca-Cola or you're Anheuser-Busch and you got all the money in the world, hey, then you have to just figure out how to spend money. And then you can do things like branding, because quite honestly, you can't, there's not enough outlets to spend money on that are measurable. But that's not the case with a startup. Startups don't have unlimited resources. Everything you do with a startup has to translate into measurable ROI on some aspect of your sales process, or you're just wasting your time and money. There's my intro.
Okay. Well, that's quite good for an intro. And that leads me into wondering specifically if how did you already took part of, you and I were having a conversation before the on-air session started, and you were mentioning your experience, or you were mentioning that you already had spent some time in Silicon Valley with your startups. How did it go in general, and how does that, what can you share with our audience in terms of the key elements of your learning curve when you were just starting out in a startup in terms of marketing and sales?
Well, I've built a number of companies. The Inc. 500 company that I built was actually in the mortgage space. So I financed high-end custom homes. And all the marketing we did in that case was content marketing. Even before, I mean, I started that company in 1989. And along the way, I was always looking for ways to separate myself from the commodity crowd. So, you know, most everybody was out there. Mortgages are a commodity, and they're, you know, everybody is out there on price. And we made the decision that we didn't want to compete on price because that's a race to the bottom. We wanted to compete on, we wanted a high premium for everything that we did. And so what we were interested in was working with customers who needed a bigger value, which was the educational aspect. So we would spend our time in marketing, our money in marketing, differentiating ourselves from those people who are going to be there. Now, that doesn't work in a commodity product, so you have to find the niche within the commodity. In our case, it was high-end custom homes. And by finding that niche for those people who needed that extra care, we were then able to differentiate. So, for example, when I would run pay-per-click ads in SEM in 2000, I had already written the Dummies book, you know, the 4 Dummies, Building Your Own Home for Dummies. And we would put in our ads, you know, you have a very small amount of space in SEM in which to get people's attention. If you're familiar, you know, if you go onto Google, you type something in, you got a couple ads at the top, you got a couple ads on the right. The amount of space in which you have to work is it's 4 lines. It's, I believe it's 35, 25, 35 characters in succession, and then subsequently a URL, right? So that's very, very valuable real estate to try and get to these leads, to get them to come. And by the way, you're going to pay when they come and they click, whether or not they buy from you. So the last thing you want to do is get a bunch of people to click that aren't going to buy from you, because that's going to be very expensive. So the idea is, how do you incorporate your message in that way that you attract the people who are most likely to buy and you repel the people who most likely aren't? So when we started with that process in 2000, for example, we just thought, oh, well, there's all these leads. We'll just go ahead and get all these people to come click. Well, not only was that very expensive with a low conversion rate, but it put a lot of stress on the salespeople that I had in my office that were talking to a lot of people that were not qualified customers. And so we refocused the messaging so that we were attracting only those people who needed extra education. We put in the ad that we were the authors of the Dummies book. We targeted that the initial question in the first 35 lines, which was having trouble understanding construction. So rather than focusing on just here's the best rates, which would have brought us just a ton of clients that we never would have closed and had to pay for, instead, the people who came and clicked on our ad, there weren't as many of them, but we paid less per click for them, and our conversion rate went from about 2% to about 80%.
Okay.
And that's a much more efficient and effective way of doing sales, which is what marketing is all about. We knew exactly what we wanted to accomplish, which was scalable efficiency. If they take nothing away from this conversation about marketing, is that all marketing should be scalable efficiency. Otherwise, it's just not good marketing.
Okay. Well, that makes a lot of sense. And but there's something else that I wanted to ask you. And in regards to there's an I would say, oh, by the way, let me I'm going to interrupt myself because I want to remind, I just get carried away. And I want to remind our audience that you can ask questions. We are figuring out the Q&A section of the window here in on air, but I remind you that you can always send me your questions on Skype, and I'll be more than happy to share them with with Kevin, and that's pretty much the way we're going to be doing it. So again, if you don't find the Q&A window where you can type in your question, you're supposed to do that. And but again, send it over to me on Skype, and I'll share them with Kevin. Kevin, what I wanted to ask you is this: you mentioned something. You mentioned that it's doing marketing nowadays is very it's not as expensive. So let's put it that way, as it used to be in the past. So my question to you would be, doesn't this create like an overabundance of venues to advertise, and they become like cheaper? The content is not as effective. So how would you, in terms of marketing, how can that be overcome? For example, let's suppose that I want to target a specific audience, but then because it's very, very low cost, then there might be a million people who are thinking of the same thing that I'm trying to do. How do we overcome that?
Yeah, I think, here's the thing. So first of all, as a writer, I write for Inc.com. The words are very important, right? And this goes to your answer. So you said that it's expensive or no longer expensive. Actually, the word I would use is that it's affordable, and that's deceiving, because quite honestly, anything that you spend money on that you don't get an ROI is very expensive. It's expensive in time, it's expensive in money.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the rates are more affordable, and that causes people to try things that ultimately end up being ineffective.
Mm-hmm.
So while it may be affordable to try them, it ends up being a very expensive process down the line.
Okay.
To your point, right, is that everybody will try things just because it's not as expensive as it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, video. I wrote Video Marketing for Dummies.
Mm-hmm.
It used to be 10 years ago, if you wanted to produce a video that you were going to send out to your clients, it might cost you $25,000, $30,000. Today, you can do a video on your, on an iMovie and your iPhone, and you can create it yourself. But that doesn't make it good, or that doesn't make it effective. The fact that anybody can do a video today doesn't mean that everybody should. You have to look at the very specific circumstances that you want. You have to understand the messaging that's capable. You have to be able to communicate that in the medium in a way that works for your customers. That's the way that you're going to be successful against all the other people who just go out and slap up a bunch of, you'll see a lot of this whiteboard animation that gets on there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's a very popular thing to do, but that isn't necessarily effective if you don't have the right message, if you haven't actually addressed the pain of the customer. My book, Roar, specifically addresses this issue of finding the proper value proposition. You have to start with the empathetic pain. Most companies just go out there and they go, here's what we do, you should be excited because we're excited. And amazingly,
Okay.
People don't respond to that. You have to start with, who is your optimal customer? What is the customer that's going to pay you the premium for what it is that you offer? Because not everybody is your customer. You're going to steal that customer from somebody else. It's very rare that you're going to create a new customer. You're
Mm-hmm.
going to steal that customer from somewhere else. And the only time a customer generally leaves an existing relationship or an existing process
Mm-hmm.
is when they're unhappy. Right? Three things that motivate a movement in action: fear, greed, and logic.
Okay.
Which one, Carlos, of those three do you think is the most powerful?
I would say greed for a lot of people.
It's fear.
Okay.
Fear is far more powerful than any of the other two. Which do you think is the weakest of the three?
So you have fear, you have greed, and you have what was the third one?
Logic.
Logic. Well, I would say logic.
Yes, logic is most definitely the weakest one. And yet, how do you think most salespeople try and sell?
Well,
logic. They go out there and they say, here's what we have. You should love us. It makes total sense. When in reality, they should be looking for those emotions of what's going to happen if you don't use us.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
What is the pain that you're having now that we actually can solve, that we can make better? Now, the customer may not even realize that they have the pain. They may not be able to articulate it. You have to articulate it for them. So if I say to you, Carlos, the challenge that you're having is that the technology that you're using to do these dojos, it's not easy to use, and not everybody uses it the same way, and
Right.
creates all this complication in getting everybody on the same page and being able to get the questions. Now I'm relating to a problem that you're having at the moment that I'm sure you're feeling the pain, right? But if I say to you,
if you consider that this, oh, I'm sorry, if you consider that this is my second broadcast, yes,
right,
there's something to it.
right. And so that's great. So I've struck that emotional chord. Now, if I say to you,
Right.
wouldn't it be great if there was a really simple piece of technology that could solve all those problems up front so you wouldn't have it? You'd be like, oh my God, I need that. How do I get that right now?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
now
I would be interested.
there you go. And now it's just a matter of explaining why my technology is better than everybody else's.
Hmm.
That was an easy sale. And that's really what you want to do with your messaging for whatever you're selling. Who is that optimal customer in need, and what is the pain that they're doing? That's how you're going to break through all the other people that are throwing all that noise into the atmosphere.
Okay. Kevin, I have a question. The question is from our company COO, by the way, and his Mr. Matt Perez. He's in San Jose, California, and the question that he's asking me to ask you is, what were you selling in the company that went from 2 to 80%?
What was I selling the company for?
In the company, yes.
High-end custom home mortgages. People who buy lots and build homes, we were financing those homes.
Okay, I see.
Mortgages, and in fact, we were doing it right in the area where Mr. Perez was living. Is living. As a matter of fact, my company financed custom homes all over the Bay Area for 15 years.
Mm-hmm. Okay, excellent. Okay, and he's I believe that he's mentioning your book, Matt. If you typed in Roar, Get Heard in the Sales and Marketing Jungle.
Yes.
And okay, sure. Well, he says thanks. And also, Matt, if you're listening, you typed in the name of the book. Was this? I believe that your question was related to the book, or is there anything else? Just let me know, okay?
Yeah.
And so I can ask Kevin.
Yeah.
Yes, Kevin. I'm sorry.
That book that Matt mentioned, Roar, it deals exactly with that topic that you and I were just talking about, that pain, solution, and then differentiation. What really makes you different from your from your competitors? Because what a lot of companies like to say, they go out there and I ask them, I'll speak to, I'm speaking at the Inc. 5000 conference. I'm speaking in Mexico City coming up in October, and I'll ask a bunch of entrepreneurs and I'll say, tell me what makes you different from what, from your competitors. And, many of them, the first thing they'll say is, well, it's our customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the problem. That's not really a differentiator, because which one of your customers go out to the clients and say, we have really terrible customer service? Nobody actually believes they have terrible customer service.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody advertises that they have terrible customer service.
Yeah, of course.
So how can it possibly be a differentiator? And for the customer who's working with those customers, they don't believe they have customer service until they're just so fed up that they're ready to leave.
Mm-hmm.
Even I don't know, even Bank of America claims to have great customer service. And if you've ever dealt with Bank of America, it's just not true. So you have to come up with a differentiator that is truly something that your competitors won't do or can't do without great effort or expense. I want to repeat that because that's a really, really important piece. It's in the book Roar. A differentiator is something your competitors won't do or can't do without great effort or expense. And that's what you have to. Now, you may not have that differentiator today. As a startup, you have the advantage of wanting to create those differentiators. But the problem is many of those differentiators can take a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of money. People come to me all the time. They say, Kevin, can you give me a marketing program that'll make me just absolutely kill my competitors in 90 days? And my answer is no. Because if it's easy enough for you to do in 90 days, then it's easy enough for your competitors to do in 90 days. You have to be willing to invest the time and the effort and the energy to develop things that nobody else can do without spending a lot of time and effort and energy. That's how you that's how you kill the market.
Absolutely. Kevin, I want to be respectful of your allotted time, and we still have about 3 or 4 minutes left, in which I'd like to take advantage of asking if, well, first of all, if no one here in the audience has any more questions, there's something in particular that I would like to ask Kevin. Kevin, you have mentioned or talked about marketing in a broad sense. I know you have experience in the startup world, but given what type of advice would you give either to the marketing team or to the engineering team regarding the types of services that we provide? Because we don't have a specific product that we sell by the millions, like I don't know, like Salesforce.com or something like that. We provide engineering services, and our approach is more along the lines of consultative sales, which are long term. Yeah. Okay, because ours is it's a very specialized niche. Okay, so we take a long time. Our sales cycle is very long. So what type of advice would you give our people here to optimize our efforts to a maximum in terms of marketing, in terms of what we're doing here?
Well, I think, it's interesting. If you know who T. Boone Pickens is, T. Boone Pickens is a billionaire. He became a billionaire at 84. He's out of Texas and very wealthy in the oil and gas industry. And about 6-7 years ago, he said that the winners are going to be companies who recognize patterns. That's the winners in the future. I agree with Mr. Pickens, but he missed one part of it. The companies that are winners are the ones who are going to recognize patterns and offer simple interfaces to them. So, the fact is that technology is on the verge of becoming invisible, but the problem is it's not invisible enough. The companies want to sell technology. I mean, your typical employee at a company in America or anyone else does not want to think about how they get on the Google Hangout, or how they send a message to somebody else, or how they get their marketing to be effective. They don't want to think about that from a technology side. As far as they're concerned, that's the tech department's job. That's the software company's job. So what they want is a very simple interface to be able to deal with however the best pattern is to be able to that they can go through it. And I think technology companies lose sight of that fact. They forget the fact that most of the people that are working out there either aren't good with technology or don't really want to be good with technology. They just want to have a phone that they can call somebody or watch a movie when they want, or get to their calendar. They don't think of it in terms of technology. So when you look at your particular company, and I think somebody else asked me today, I did an interview this morning, and they were asking me about, what was a great example of a company that thinks the way that you need to think for the future. And I think Airbnb is a great example. What makes Airbnb a great example is that they don't think technology first. They don't change their customers' behavior for the sake of a new upgrade. They don't sit there and go, boy, wouldn't it be really cool if we could create this sort of technology? They think about the customer experience, and then they use technology as a tool to make that customer experience phenomenal. And so in your situation, nobody really cares at the end of the day whether or not the things that you're doing happen in Mexico or happen in the US. What they care about is their end experience of what was the price, what was I able to get from a usability function with the people that I was dealing with, how easy is it for me to interface with these people. The parts of it that you do on the backside, that's your secret sauce. That's your business model and should be effectively invisible to the customer. What you want them to do is have a great customer experience. And if you focus on that and use your intelligence and your resources to make that better than anybody else, you'll be successful. Okay.
Well, that certainly is quite a handful, and there's a lot of food for thought in this. And well, right now it's 3:31, and I believe that we're approaching your we're time limit that we have in this session. So before we we go, I'd like to ask you if there's anything else you want to share with our audience. Maybe you want to talk about your book, or anything that you feel is relevant and would like to share with our audience before we go.
No, I appreciate the time. The best thing I'd like to ask is if you enjoyed what I had to say. Marketing is one aspect of what I do. I talk a lot about employee behavior and entrepreneurship. If you like what I have to say, if you go to kevindaum.com/Inc. or just go to kevindaum.com and click on my Inc. column, I write 4 columns a week. I got about 500,000 people that follow, and I would invite you to come and subscribe. And if you get value, then let me know, and keep reading.
Oh, absolutely. And Kevin, well, you said you were coming over to Mexico City, so please, by all means, you have a formal open invitation to pay us a visit here, and we'll treat you to lunch. Promise you won't get sick. I
love Mexican food, so
okay. We'll take. Yeah. So yeah, please, we'd love to have you, and you have the invitation. So I hope you are able to make it. Either way, you and I are going to be in touch, and you let me know what your schedule looks like. We'll arrange something, and then we'll have our folks here come and talk to you, and get to know the place that we have here.
That'd be great.
All right. Well,
thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin, and thank you, everyone. I'll talk to you soon, and you have a great day. Thank you. Bye.